Very good morning. We are live from New Delhi. You're watching DD India, India's voice to the world. I'm Abhishek Mahajan. Coming up in the next hour, former US President Donald Trump's election trial begins on March 4th. India's health ministry beefs up preparations ahead of G20 summit in Delhi. And at the US Open, world number one, Iga Swiatek begins with emphatic victory. Novak Djokovic faces Alexander Muller on Tuesday. March 4th, 2024. That's that day Donald Trump's federal trial on allegations that he tried to overturn the 2020 presidential election is slated to begin. That means the former president and current Republican 2024 frontrunner will be juggling a schedule full of court cases and campaigning. DD India's Tony Waterman has more.
This trial would start in the middle of the Republican presidential primaries and the day before Super Tuesday. That is when more than a dozen states will vote on potential presidential nominees. Now, Trump's team had asked for the trial to be pushed back to April of 2026, arguing that they needed the time to review all 13 million pages of evidence that's been turned over so far. But Judge Tanya Chutkan refused, saying that a March 4th start date was adequate time to prepare. She said Trump will have to prioritize the trial and that she won't be making any changes to the schedule for professional obligations. One thing she did do, though, was check in with the judge overseeing Trump's hush money case in Manhattan, because there is likely to be overlap. That trial, in which the former president faces 34 charges, is scheduled to start in late March. Now, Trump took to social media to lambast the trial date, calling it election interference and saying that he will appeal. But the truth is, he is fighting 91 charges across 4 cases that could all go to trial before Election Day in November of 2024. Besides the elections case in D.C., there's again that hush money case in New York, the mishandling of classified documents in Florida, that trial slated to start next May, and the Georgia elections case where Trump and 18 co-defendants have been charged with trying to overturn the election results in that state. The prosecutor there wants that trial to start this coming October, setting up a very busy year of court cases and presidential campaigning for Donald Trump. Tony Waterman in Austin, Texas, reporting for DD India.
Meanwhile, Donald Trump says he will appeal the scheduling of the trial, although legal experts argue that such a move is not possible before a verdict is reached in the case. So Trump continues to deny any wrongdoing, saying they are part of an effort to prevent him from retaking the White House. The planned trial in Washington, D.C. is one of 4 criminal prosecutions the former president is facing as he continues his 2024 presidential push. South Korean and U.S. Special Command troops conducted joint maritime training on Monday, with hundreds of Americans and South Korean soldiers mobilized for the drills off South Korea's coast. South Korea says the joint Ulchi exercises are redesigned to enhance responses to North Korea's nuclear and missile threats, adding that this year's exercises are being seen as the largest scale ever. Meanwhile, North Korean media is reporting that its leader Kim Jong-un is calling for strengthening his country's naval forces as the military drills continue, accusing the United States of turning the Korean peninsula into unstable waters. All right, we'll slip into a very short break, but still to come on DD India News Hour. Charles Michel says EU must be ready to admit new members by 2030. Storm Idalia to intensify into major hurricane ahead of Florida landfall. 2 dead, at least 4 injured in fire-rescued helicopter crash in Pompano Beach, Florida.
Welcome to Kumarakom, Kerala, God's own country.
Welcome back. You're watching DD9 News Hour. I'm Abhishek Mahajan. In yet another shooting incident in US, a faculty member was dead and a person was in custody after a shooting that shut down the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill on Monday for 3 hours and sparked urgent warnings for students to take shelter. Students and staff members barricaded themselves in dorms, classrooms and library study areas for much of the afternoon, and area elementary schools held students past the normal dismissal time. After roughly 3 hours of lockdown, the all clear was given. Classes started a week ago, but the shooting led to terror and an eerie quiet during what is usually a joyous and exciting time on the campus. The video showed a large number of police vehicles at the campus with their emergency lights flashing. At times, people walked out of nearby buildings in a single file line with their arms in the air.
UNC police were notified of shots being fired in Cottle Laboratories on our campus. The suspect was eventually apprehended and is now in custody. I'm grieved to report that one of our faculty members was killed in this shooting. This loss is devastating, and the shooting damages the trust and safety that we so often take for granted in our campus community.
As the United States witnessed a spree of mass shootings in past few days in Florida and Boston, White House spokesperson Karine Jean-Pierre made it clear that white supremacy has no place in America. A 21-year-old white gunman shot and killed 3 black people at a Dollar General store in Jacksonville, Florida on Saturday. The shooter later died of a self-inflicted gunshot wound.
Even as we continue searching for answers, we must say clearly and forcefully that white supremacy has no place in America. As the president said in his statement yesterday, we must refuse to live in a country where black families going to the store or black students going to school live in fear of being gunned down because of the color of their skin. And we must continue to do all we can to keep guns out of dangerous hands.
Meanwhile, China's Minister of Commerce held talks with his US counterpart in Beijing on Monday in a bid to boost bilateral trade. Discussions focused on trade and economic relations, with sides recognizing the importance of open and productive dialogue in economy and trade. The US representative arrived in Beijing on Sunday as part of a 4-day visit to China. As uncertainty looms over the fate of Wagner fighters after the death of his chief, Yevgeny Prigozhin, Russia pledged at the United Nations to keep providing comprehensive assistance to Mali, where about 1,000 fighters with Russia's Wagner mercenary group are helping the West African states junta fight an Islamist insurgency. Wagner chief Prigozhin died in a plane crash last week, and Russian President Vladimir Putin then ordered Wagner fighters to sign an oath of allegiance to the Russian state. Russia's deputy UN ambassador told the UN on Monday that bilateral cooperation between Russia and Mali and the military junta's sovereign choice of international security partners are keeping former Western partners up at night. The 15-member council in June voted to end a decade-long peacekeeping mission in Mali after the military junta abruptly asked the 13,000-strong force to leave, a move the United States said was engineered by the Wagner Group.
As many of us feared, the transition government's decision to close MINUSMA has already triggered renewed violence on the ground. We are alarmed by a resumption of hostilities in northern Mali, including by violations of the ceasefire during the August 11th and 12th clashes at the Bear Camp, and by subsequent attacks on a MINUSMA convoy on August 13th. Additionally, MINUSMA's withdrawal limits the ability of the international community to protect civilians from the predations of Wagner, whose activities contribute to greater insecurity in the country.
And the White House has said it was increasingly confident that Wagner mercenary chief Yevgeny Prigozhin died in a plane crash in Russia last week. Earlier, Russian President Vladimir Putin sent his condolences to Prigozhin's family.
We are increasingly confident that Prigozhin died in the plane crash that took place on August 23rd, this past Wednesday. I don't have any new assessment for you on this, so I'll just leave it there.
Meanwhile, the death toll in an overnight air attack by Russia on northern and central Ukraine has risen to 5 as Ukrainian troops liberated the southeastern settlement of Robotyne and were trying to push farther south in a 2-month-old counteroffensive against occupying Russian forces. The Ukrainian military said that its troops last week had raised the national flag in the strategic village and posted a video showing the move. The forces then carried out mopping up operations until they confirmed control on Monday. The settlement is 10 kilometers south of the frontline town of Orikhiv in Zaporizhia region on an important road towards Tokmak, a Russian-occupied road and rail hub. Tokmak's capture would be a milestone as Ukrainian troops press southwards towards the Sea of Azov in a military drive that is intended to split Russian forces following Moscow's full-scale invasion in February 2022. Now, Japan is calling on China to calm its citizens over concerns of anti-Japanese sentiment building in the country. Japan is asking its citizens in China to keep a low profile, while Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesman Wang Wenbin said China has expressed its solemn position to Japan over stopping the treated water from Fukushima plant through diplomatic channels. Tests of seawater of Fukushima show tritium with expected safety limits. All right, let's go across to Hong Kong now, where DD India's Andrew Wood is joining us. Andrew, Japan has summoned China's ambassador, with Fumio Kishida saying stones were thrown at its diplomatic missions and schools in China. And there have been talks of harassment phone calls too. Fill us in with more details.
Well, apparently some in Japan have been lots, hundreds of phone calls from China, which they've been making possible to
All right, we'll try to connect with Andrew Wood again. There's some connection issue, but Japan is calling on China to calm its citizens over concerns of anti-Japanese sentiment building in the country. And like we were talking, Japan is asking its citizens in China to keep a low profile, while Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesman Wang Wenbin said China has expressed its solemn position to Japan over stopping the treated water from Fukushima plant through diplomatic channel. And as far as tests of seawater of Fukushima show tritium within expected safety limits. All right, Andrew Wood has joined us again. Andrew, please go ahead.
Well, Global Times, which is a state-owned newspaper in China, reckons that Japan is trying to paint itself as the victim here. and that really it's Chinese people who are suffering. Although, of course, there's all these reports of Japanese businesses being harassed by lots and lots, hundreds even of phone calls from China, clogging up their switchboards and so on. In some ways, though, that perhaps the action is perhaps attenuating a bit around the region. There still have been protests over the weekend in South Korea about this. And South Korea has said that it's now going to have 100 days of intensive checks of seafood in general to try to find out whether anybody is bringing in Japanese seafood illegally and pretending that it's it's from other parts of the world. In Singapore, the government has said it's not going to ban imports of Japanese seafood, but it is going to monitor things very, very carefully. And it says that it's taking a scientific, evidence-based approach. Singapore government there seems to be more sympathetic to Japan's arguments that scientifically the scientists and the people from the international energy regulators and so on have said that there shouldn't actually be any problem from these discharges.
And also, Andrew, I mean, more test results have come in from the discharged water. What do they show?
Well, so far, the results that have been published seem to show that there is the amount of tritium in particular, this is the radioactive form of hydrogen, that's been found out at sea is within safety limits. And certainly there are some Japanese who point out that China, for example, also it's normal, it's working nuclear power plants at very low levels as well, and so accuse perhaps China of being a bit hypocritical. For its part, China again says, well, this is just ordinary water we're discharging here from our nuclear power plants. It's not water that's come into contact with hot nuclear during the worst parts of the Fukushima disaster over the past 10 years.
All right, Andrew, we'll end it here. Thank you for getting us the latest from Hong Kong. All right, London expanded its ultra-low emission zone on Tuesday to all boroughs in a bid to discourage users of more polluting vehicles from entering the city. Drivers who choose to cross the boundary with vehicles that don't meet requirements will have to pay nearly $16 every day. DD India's Stuart Smith has more from London.
The centre of the city has had an ultra-low emissions zone since 2019, but this policy means hundreds of thousands more may be susceptible to the charge. The mayor proposed the policy in order to reduce the harm of toxic air pollution, which researchers found was responsible for prematurely killing 4,000 Londoners a year. Those in opposition say it's unfair on those who require a car to move around and don't have the means to upgrade their vehicle or use public transport alternatives. It's turned into a massive political hot potato between the Conservative government and the opposition Labour Party. While the Conservatives run the country, Labour runs London, and the elected mayor Sadiq Khan says the government seems to be weaponising air pollution and climate change for political reasons. Outrage amongst some has resulted in hundreds of the new ULEZ cameras reportedly being vandalised or stolen ahead of the start date to prevent vehicle number plates being scanned and stop fines being issued. The mayor's office says it's not backing down, with some cameras getting armour plating to protect them. Stuart Smith in London, reporting for DD India.
And tropical storm Idalia lashed western Cuba and was expected to intensify into a major hurricane as it made its way towards Florida's Gulf Coast. According to the National Hurricane Center's advisory, Idalia is churning 80 miles off Cuba's western point, heading north. Idalia impacted Cuba, prompting evacuations, shelter and fishing boat security. The authorities evacuate thousands of Pinar del Rio near Artemisa, facing heavy rains in Havana, the capital city of Cuba, with light winds. And India's weather department has forecast heavy to very heavy rain in Assam, Meghalaya and Arunachal Pradesh for Tuesday. Severe rains have worsened the flood situation in Assam, affecting nearly 0.19 million people across 17 districts. The Brahmaputra River in Dibrugarh district is flowing above water level and is expected to increase further. Reports of infrastructural damage have come in from all around Assam. All right, for more on this, we are joined by DD India Subina Roy from Dibrugarh. Subina, what is the current situation in Assam and what are the affected areas affected? What are the areas affected majorly, and also what is the forecast?
Yes, Abhishek. Due to the heavy rainfalls which have been occurring as the monsoon drought continues to be there in the foothills of Himalayas, the rains have largely devastated large parts of Assam. So the population affected is around 1 lakh people have been affected, and over 1.3 lakh animals are have been affected by these flood waters. And when it comes to the crop areas, around 8,086 hectares of crop areas have been affected, and villages are the places which have been really affected. The around 522 villages have been affected in 42 revenue circles. Now, due to these heavy rainfalls, the water levels of Brahmaputra and its tributaries have been rising, like the Brahmaputra at Dhubri, Tejpur, Jorhat have been increasing. Then the Beki at Road Bridge Point, Jia Bhorali at Road Crossing Point, and the Disang at Sipsagar, then Dikho at Nangla Muraghat. So these are the few rivers, including Subansiri. These are the few rivers which have the water levels are increasing. And as per latest reports of yesterday's night, Brahmaputra, the level of Brahmaputra at Dibrugarh has been rising. So the normal level is around 105.70 meters. Now, after these rains, the water level has increased to around 105.87 meters, and it's expected to rise. Now, when it comes to the rescue operations, yesterday around 111 people were rescued by the SDRF teams and the local circles and the local administrations through 9 boats, and around there has been a report of 1 casualty due to flood-related incident in Sibsagar district yesterday. Now, when it comes to infrastructure damage, every year, erosion is a common problem in Assam, and whereas in the whole part of India, around 10% of the land area is flood prone, but in Assam, 39% of the land area is flood prone, due to which every year people are being displaced due to the lands which are being cut away by the rivers. Now, this time, the infrastructure reports, damage reports have come from Biswanath, Darang, Udalgiri, then Karimganj, Majuli, Sonipur. So these are the districts which are largely affected. And when it comes to erosion, Borpeta, Vishwanath, Tinshukia, Dhubri,
You have told us
Lakhimpur,
the
Morigaon,
districts that have
Sonipur.
been affected, and thank you. We'll end it here. Thank you for getting us the latest on the Assam flood situation. All right, moving on to our next story now. Roads overlooking Lake Como were shut due to landslides and flash floods that hit northern Italy as strong storms approached. Downpour, severe rain caused flash floods in Sondrio and Genoa, as well as landslide in Blevio in the northern Italian region of Como. The authorities said cleanup efforts were in progress in the impacted cities. Piedmont and Lombardy still posed a serious flood risk. After flooding and landslides were caused by severe rains in many regions in eastern China, hundreds of residents were evacuated. Emergency personnel from Shuchang city in the Henan province after floodwaters reached a meter high and trapped locals. Red alert was issued by Yidu, a city in the province of Hubei, the most severe warning in China's 4-tier weather alert system. Severe rainy summer has gripped China for weeks, causing flooding and heavy downpours. Typhoon Doksuri's storms in late July brought on China's worst weather in nearly 10 years, with Beijing seeing its greatest downpour in 140 years. All right, now let's take a look at other stories making news around the world. The Mexican Navy has seized 4,400 metric tons of cocaine during a high-speed chase at sea also detaining 11 people. Those arrested have now been handed over to the prosecutor's office. 4 migrant children have drowned off the Greek island of Lesbos, while a woman also drowned in a separate incident off the island of Samos on Monday. Authorities say that 23 migrants were trying to cross from nearby Turkey. According to the UNHCR, more than 15,000 people arrived in Greece this year, mostly by sea. This is the moment when a helicopter crashed into an apartment complex in Pompano Beach, Florida, killing 2 people and injuring at least 4. One of the victims has been identified as firefighter Captain Terrence Jackson, who was on board. The other victim was a woman who was on the ground when the accident occurred. A group of Egyptian politicians criticized Egypt's president, saying they were considering challenging him in the upcoming elections, while the coalition is not seen as posing a major threat to Sisi, who is expected to run for his 3rd term in elections early next year following constitutional amendments. All right, time now for another short break, but still to come on DD India News Hour. Delhi all tailored up for G20. Kerala set to welcome the much-awaited Onam festival. Asia's biggest slums to be redeveloped.
Swagatam to Andhra Pradesh, the coastal jewel of India. A state steeped in history. From the Gandi Kota Fort to the majestic Gondapalli Fort. A region known as the Rice Bowl of India. A holy land with rivers Krishna and Godavari flowing through it. Every part of this land tells a story of culture and devotion. And of a modern, developed, vibrant India. The graceful Kuchipudi and exuberant Dhimsa showcase the artistic brilliance of this land. The Ikkat and Kalamkari speak of the talent of artisans and their skilled hands. A cultural concoction that unites people in the spirit of Vasudhaiv Kutumbakam.
Wherever news breaks, whatever it takes.
Connecting corners, cutting across continents.
Stories that matter from across the globe.
Accurate, authentic journalism that serves you right. From politics to glamour, from sports to world affairs, with a fusion of aesthetics and substance. Introducing news in a new avatar. Experience the world through a new lens. Stay tuned to DD India for an exciting journey beyond borders.
Welcome back. You're watching DD India News Hour. I'm Abhishek Mahajan. And the viewers who have just tuned in, recap of what we have done so far. Former US President Donald Trump's election trial begins on March 4. India's health ministry beefs up preparations ahead of G20 summit in Delhi. And at the US Open, world number 1 Iga Swiatek begins with emphatic victory. Novak Djokovic faces Alexander Muller on Tuesday. G20 now. Preparations are in full swing for the G20 summit in Delhi. To deal with any sort of medical emergency, 50 ambulances with designated medical staff will be stationed at the Indira Gandhi International Airport, hotels and the summit venue, Bharat Mandapam. Major government hospitals will also be put on standby. intensive care unit-like arrangement will be installed near the venue to cater to any medical need. Team of dedicated medical staff will be made available for the delegates round the clock. Indian Health Minister Dr. Mansukh Mandavia is going to review the medical contingency preparation on Tuesday. And like we said, Delhi is gearing up for the G20 Summit 2023 to be held on September 9th and 10th. The city has been decorated with posters and lighting ahead of the summit. Many heads of states and diplomats are expected to attend the summit. Over 25 world leaders, including US President Joe Biden, Chinese President Xi Jinping, and Turkey President Recep Tayyip Erdogan, will convene at India's hosted G20 summit on September 9th and 10th. White House Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre tells us about President Biden's stand.
The President will reaffirm the U.S. commitment to the G20 as the premier forum of economic cooperation globally. He'll discuss a range of joint efforts to tackle global issues, from the clean energy transition and combating climate change to mitigating the economic and social impacts of Russia's war in Ukraine. Obviously, that will be a big part of the conversation, to increasing the capacity of the multilateral development banks, including the World Bank, to better fight poverty and take on the significant transnational challenges that are afflicting countries across the world.
And Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi on Monday held a telephonic conversation with Russian President Vladimir Putin. The two leaders reviewed progress on a number of issues of bilateral cooperation and exchanged views on regional and global issues of mutual concern, including the recently concluded BRICS summit. President Putin also conveyed his inability to attend the G20 summit in New Delhi and informed that Russia would be represented by its Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov. PM also thanked President Putin for Russia's consistent support to all initiatives under India's G20 presidency. And the second meeting of the chief scientific advisors at Gandhinagar in Gujarat under India's G20 presidency concluded on Monday with the adoption of an outcome document. Consensus was built on 4 agenda points in the roundtable. The G20 CS a roundtable in a new initiative launched during India's ongoing presidency of the G20. Chief scientific advisors of the G20 heads of states and government were brought together with the objective of creating an effective institutional arrangement to discuss global science and tech policy issues. It is expected to evolve into an effective and coherent global science advice mechanism. G20 CASR aims to come up with solutions to some of the issues faced by the global S&T ecosystem. The G20 India Agri-Tech Summit was organized on Monday in India's national capital, New Delhi. The role of technology in the field of agriculture and the possibilities of technology-based agriculture in the future were discussed in the summit. Startups and people associated with the agriculture industry participated in this summit. And India's G20 Sherpa Amitabh Kant addressed the event. The Sherpa is a special appointee of each member country's principal to undertake negotiations to draft the final outcome document. He highlighted 4 priorities of the Agriculture Working Group and also said G20 members have taken the collective responsibilities for sustainable agriculture food system.
The Agriculture Working Group had 4 priorities this year: food security and nutrition, sustainable agriculture with climate-smart approach, inclusive agri-value chains and food systems, and digitization for agricultural transformation. All these G20 priorities of India are set in the backdrop of addressing the issue of global hunger and malnutrition for achieving the Sustainable Development Goal 2 of zero hunger by leveraging technological advancement. And technological advancement in agriculture is really the key. Leveraging digital and technological advancement also translates mainstreaming innovative practices like providing farmers with real-time data, creating crop production forecast models, integrating artificial intelligence for projections regarding crop disease outbreak, warming, and agricultural inputs control, particularly good irrigation systems. G20 members, being the major agriculture producers, consumers and exporters, have come together to take a collective they have taken a collective responsibility towards transitioning to a sustainable and resilient agricultural food system.
And he further said digitalization in the agriculture sector will promote the resilient agri-food system.
Promoting investments in the startups, incubators and accelerators to boost entrepreneurship in agriculture was also highlighted in the agricultural track this year. Technology can be employed at all stages of the agriculture and food systems. Ladies and gentlemen, production, processing and marketing are all critical. Digitization and fintech services with rural digital inclusion in a comprehensive manner and at a scale will promote resilient agri-food system and value chain.
And Surinder Makhija, chairman of Jain Irrigation Systems Limited, said that in the coming days, innovation will provide software to the farmers that they will be able to grow crops which are demand-driven.
I always believe that the agriculture has to be demand-driven. The farmer should be able to know the pulse of the market. He should know what he should grow, where he can sell it, and what is the anticipated price. So this is all possible because of the small device we all hold in our hand. And times will come, the innovations would provide these kind of softwares to the farmers that he or she would be able to, should grow crops which relate to the demand, which can be transported to the demand centers, and they are able to get good money, double, triple, or multiply the income. And our current government has made it possible for the farmer to know about things, to reach the market because of the digital access. So that's how I feel science and technology will play a very big part.
Now, Indian billionaire Gautam Adani's plan to rehouse 1 million people living in one of Asia's biggest slums is fueling worries among residents about his capacity to deliver.
The Dharavi slum in India's Mumbai is home to 1 million people, making it one of the world's biggest. It has a complicated history dating back to the 1800s. Now a plan to overhaul the area is causing residents to get jittery about what the future holds and where they fit into it. You might recognize Dharavi from the Oscar-winning movie Slumdog Millionaire. The slum is known for producing leather goods, and many residents run small businesses out of their homes. At the helm of plans to redevelop Dharavi into a modern city hub are Indian billionaire Gautam Adani and the Adani Group. In July, the state government approved his $614 million contract bid to overhaul the slum, after years of failed attempts. The Adani Group says it will demolish what it describes in legal documents as an area of unhygienic, deplorable conditions, and build new towers on state-owned land to accommodate residents and their businesses. Adani stands to make billions from the project. Residents worry the redevelopment will take away their livelihoods.
We also want to live in a bigger house. However, we are scared that the tailoring business we are running here, whether it will be able to grow or not.
The overhaul will come with free homes, but only for those who lived here before 2000. About 700,000 residents are considered ineligible and will be offered units up to 6 miles away. That could require them to pay upfront costs or higher rents. The project comes at a tumultuous time for Adani, who has acknowledged the project presents colossal challenges. He was considered the world's third richest person until January, when allegations by a U.S. short seller of improper dealings wiped $150 billion off his group's market valuations. In interviews with Reuters, some Dharavi residents said the billionaire's financial troubles contributed to their mistrust, with some wondering where they would go if the project fell apart. A fresh threat to the project is a legal challenge from rival bidder Seclink Technologies Corporation. It alleges that an original 2018 tender was improperly canceled and restarted with new terms last year so that Adani could win, according to court papers reviewed by Reuters. The current state government and Adani are contesting the case.
India's space agency ISRO is all set to launch its first space-based Indian observatory to study the sun. Aditya L1 will be launched on 2nd September. ISRO says the spacecraft will be placed in a halo orbit around the Lagrange point 1 or L1 of the Sun-Earth system, which is about 1.5 million kilometers from the Earth. It is expected to take over 120 days for this spacecraft to reach the L1. All right, DD India's Jai Singh is joining us from Chennai now. So after the success of Chandrayaan-3, ISRO, Indian Space Research Organization, is all set to send Aditya L1, India's first space-based observatory, to study the sun. All right, we'll go across to Chennai now, where DD India's Jai Singh is joining us live. Good morning, Jai Singh. After the success of Chandrayaan-3, ISRO is all set to send Aditya L1, India's first space-based observatory, to study the sun. Tell us about the mission. What is the mission like?
Well, close on the heels of Chandrayaan-3, now ISRO is all set to launch the space observatory aiming at studying the sun, various characteristics of the sun, which is always, exciting the whole humankind. It is the source of not only light but also energy that makes life possible on this planet, and the topographical structures across the solar system. So this is the first mission. It is aimed at not moving anywhere closer to the sun, because sun is releasing such a tremendous amount of heat and charged particle. We can go up to a certain point and study the nature of the sun from a distance. The distance now is L1 point, called Lagrange point number 1. There are 5 such points which are ideal to study the sun, because anywhere beyond the Lagrange point will lead the sun to attract the satellite or spacecraft towards it, leading to its disuse. And anywhere less than that Lagrange point will make the Earth to pull it towards the Earth. So we will have to spend a lot of fuel to keep it there floating stable. So Lagrange point is such a place where the gravitational pull of the sun and the Earth will cancel each other, because at that point the resultant pull will be zero. Therefore, the spacecraft can be stable there for a long time. So that is the ideal point where the ISRO is now aiming at sending its probe called Aditya L1. So the L1 means Lagrange 1. It will study the solar flares and also the corona discharge. Corona means the thorn-like structures that are on the surface of the sun, which releases a lot of charged particles and heat. So how this is possible, how it varies from place to place on the sun. Then the corona discharge, the core part of the sun also has a lot of characteristics like black spot, electromagnetic radiation. So these characteristics of the sun, this is an ideal probe to study those characteristics of the celestial body, our own sun.
All right, so it's not going to the sun, it's going very close to the sun, it's going to a place where it can continuously view the sun. We'll end it here. Thank you for your analysis, Jai Singh. Appreciate. Now let's take a look at other stories making news today. India's space agency has released an Ultra HD video of Chandrayaan-3 landing on Moon's south pole, revealing more and more about the Moon. ISRO says data from the mission's Vikram lander indicates major temperature variations on the Moon's surface. Indian Minister of Road Transport and Highways Nitin Gadkari will unveil a 100% ethanol-fueled variant of Toyota's Innova car later today. It's part of a push to encourage car manufacturers to create alternative fuel-powered and green vehicles. Last year, the minister launched a hydrogen-powered car, Toyota Mirai EV. Doctors saved the life of a 2-year-old girl who stopped breathing on board a Bengaluru-Delhi Vistara flight. The 4 AIIMS resident doctors and 1 from ILBS performed CPR on the child mid-air after the crew made an emergency announcement. India's Health Minister Mansukh Mandaviya has congratulated the doctors for saving a precious life. Kerala is all set to welcome the main day of Onam festival tomorrow. The harvest celebration symbolizes the homecoming of the mythological king Mahabali, who was believed to have ruled Kerala when love, equality, fraternity and prosperity flourished. Fresh floral designs are made every day to welcome the legendary king, which continues till the end of Onam festival. All right, time now for another short break, but still to come on DD India News Hour. World's largest automaker Toyota suspends operations in Japan. Indian women's blind cricket team returns home with the gold, defeating Australia. And pack of hungry giant panda cubs enjoying and relaxing.
A confluence of spirituality, knowledge and culture. The progenitor of democracy, Bihar holds a special place in India's history. Treasure the journey of enlightenment. Travel the holy circuit trails of multiple faiths. Experience the legacy of ancient India. And an educational lineage that produced some of the greatest luminaries of the time. Discover a multitude of art and craft forms. Savor the true flavors of the land. And enjoy the sights and sounds of iconic festivals. Delve deeper into the natural beauty of this land, enriched by the sacred river Ganga. Today, Bihar's infrastructure is at the heart of its transformation. Poised to take a big leap with initiatives in agriculture, education, tourism, and information technology. An ode to a remarkable history. Bihar truly offers a glimpse into a captivating past and vibrant present. Welcome to Bihar.
Welcome back. You're watching DD India News Hour. I'm Abhishek Mahajan. Business updates now. Wall Street rallied on Monday, shaking off a recent losing streak. The main indices all finished the day in the green as the tech sector tried to bounce back from steep losses. DD India's Nick Harper reports.
Well, US markets found more solid footing on Monday as Wall Street entered the final trading week of August, looking to try and regain some of those recent losses. It's been a bad month for all three indexes, dropping in the region of 2.5% to 4.5% each over the last 4 weeks. On Monday, though, the tech sector got a boost, with some of the big players like Apple and Meta trading higher. The markets also seemed buoyed on Monday following comments on Friday from Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell. He suggested that the US economy is continuing to show signs of growth, and he pointed to strong consumer spending data. Even so, he teased more interest rate hikes, and traders now say there's a 20% chance that the Fed will raise rates again at its next meeting in September. Before then, we'll get personal consumption expenditures index data, that's a key gauge of inflation, and the monthly jobs report. They're both out during the course of this trading week. So at the close, the Dow was up 0.6%, the S&P also up 0.6%, and the tech-heavy Nasdaq faring slightly better, finishing the day 0.8% higher. Nick Harper in Washington, reporting for DD India.
Now, auto giant Toyota Motor Corp has suspended operations at a dozen factories in Japan due to a system failure. It is not immediately clear when the system will be restored. Public broadcaster NHK reported on Monday. All local plants except for the Miyata plant in western Japan of Fukuoka and Toyota unit Daihatsu's plant in Kyoto are affected. The operations at the world's largest automaker by sales ground to a halt last year when one of its suppliers was hit by a cyber attack. All right, time now for some sporting action. We'll start with US Open. Fans flocked to New York City's Flushing Meadows Corona Park in Queens to watch the best of the best compete against one another at the Arthur Stadium on Monday. Iga Swiatek began her US Open title defense with an emphatic first-round victory. World number one Swiatek breezed to a 6-0, 6-1 win over Sweden's Rebecca Peterson in 58 minutes. Now, Elena Rybakina defeated Kostyuk 6-2, 6-1 in under 1 hour and 16 minutes, despite having shoulder pain prior to the tournament. Now, Greek Stefanos Tsitsipas reached the second round of the US Open by winning against Canadian Milos Raonic 6-2, 6-3, 6-4. Cricket now. The Indian women's blind cricket team has returned home. Women in Blue scripted history at Birmingham as they won a gold medal by defeating Australia at International Blind Association's World Games held in Birmingham. Cricket was included for the first time. All right, before we wrap, we take a look at some visuals from Chengdu Research Base, where a pack of hungry giant panda cubs were filmed cozily, lying on their backs and enjoying their delicious food. All right, that's all for this edition of DD India News Hour. But let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. You can connect with us on Facebook, X, formerly known as Twitter, and Instagram. We'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I'm Abhishek Mahajan. From all of us here in Delhi, thanks for watching DD India News Hour.